Welcome to the podcast today. I have an awesome guest, Brent Minster. He's a good friend and neighbor of mine. I've heard Brent's story recently. He was speaking in our local church, and it just caught my heart as something really important and worth sharing with others. Brent comes off to me as someone who has the ability to let go of things easily, which is a gift in today's age. He doesn't seem to carry a lot of stress. He's generally a happy guy. But when you get to know him a little bit, you might find out that his story and many parts of his life could go the other way for some of us. You know, how we receive and take things can change. So that's my introduction for Brent. Brent, why don't you say hello, and then we can get going.
Hello, good to be here.
Thanks, Brent. So give us a little background. Maybe you can go back to that talk that you shared in church, and what was so meaningful to you that you shared, the things you shared, and give us some of the highlights from that, and then whatever else comes to your heart.
Okay, well, the main things that I remember about that talk, and it's things I talk to people about all the time, is that I've gone through some fairly bad things in my life, and it's just been since 2008 when it all started. I have learned through going through these experiences, and I'll name some of them if you'd like.
Yes, please.
I found out by going through those things, if I would let myself, it would have destroyed me. In fact, I'll tell one little story why I decided to change. But anyway, I'll start off with, in 2008, I was diagnosed with cancer in my jawbone. It was called desmoplastic melanoma. And they told me what they was going to have to do. And I says, that doesn't sound fun. I said, what will happen if I don't do it? And he says, it'll continue going to your brain and it'll take your life. And so I had to go through this experience where they split my jawbone right about here and took the whole right jawbone out and got the cancer out, and then took the fibula bone out of my left leg and built a new jawbone.
How do you do that and still walk? Okay.
At the first, I couldn't.
Okay.
I was in casts and crutches and wheelchairs for a while.
So your leg can just live without a fibula bone?
Yeah, evidently.
Okay.
I was really worried about it because I was very active,
Mm-hmm.
and I played a lot of sports. But I found out that he says it'll heal and you'll never know it's gone.
Wow.
And to this day, I don't know that I don't have a fibula. But anyway, when I found out I had this and decided to go through this surgery, the doctor was down in Salt Lake. He was a specialist. And they did the surgery in the old LDS hospital in Salt Lake. And the recovery time, I was there for about a week and a half. And most of the time, when I finally could get up and get to a wheelchair, I just go around this third floor, what was on, which is the cancer floor. And one day I got up out of bed and got in my chair, and I was just really feeling sorry for myself, asking questions like, why did this happen to me? Didn't think I'd done anything to deserve it.
Well, and you're probably not the only person who's asked that
I think
question,
everybody does that,
especially
to a
during
point.
difficult times.
But I decided, I got in my wheelchair and started going around the rooms around this third floor. And I'd done that a few times, but I never stopped and looked. Most of the doors are open. And there was one section on that third floor that had about 7 little kids that were fighting cancer. Most of them were terminal. And I got looking at them, and they were smiling. They were laughing. They were having fun with their parents. I thought, I went back to my room, and I was really mad at myself. I says, you have no right at all to feel sorry for yourself. And right then I decided that no matter what happens to me the rest of my life, and especially right now going through that, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to get the best out of it and do what I can to make my life better. And I thought I was all through. And then in 2012, I had my second cancer, which was a totally different kind of cancer. It was in my arm, in the bone, and it was called Hodgkin's lymphoma. And that's the one I had to go through doing chemo and radiation and all that. And I got through that. I used all the things I taught myself from the earlier experience, and it was easy to go through. It wasn't bad.
Do you feel like it was easier the second time because you changed your mindset?
Yes. Mentally, it was much, much easier. Physically, it was still going to do what it's going to do. But physically, I totally changed my mind that I'm not going to let this beat me again. And it didn't. And then in 2019, I all of a sudden had a heart attack. I hadn't had any trouble with my heart at all.
Just kind of came up on you.
Yeah, it just came upon me. And they rushed me down to the hospital, and a surgeon came in and says, "You're not going anywhere. In fact, we're going to operate in 2 days. We got to do open heart surgery." And I have to admit, that was the worst thing I've ever been through in my life, the open heart surgery. It knocked the snot out of me for about a year and a half.
Wow. So just the after.
I couldn't get my strength back, and I couldn't do anything.
How was your mindset? Did it stay strong?
Again, I decided I can beat this. And I tried and I tried. When I came home from the hospital, I had a physical therapist would come to the home and show me a bunch of exercises. And I made sure I did them because I knew it was going to help. And I didn't physically it hurt, but mentally I was okay with it because I knew I was going to get better. But we got through that. And then 4 years ago.
Well, before you jump to that,
okay,
I think there's some important pieces. You said you knew you were going to get better. Can you speak to that? Like, where did that quiet confidence come from?
It came from the experience I had with my first cancer, and in deciding that I wasn't going to let this beat me. I decided that there are people in the world that are going through a whole lot more than I am, and they make it. And I just told myself that you can do this, and I did it.
So in your mindset, you were able to go back and remember that feeling you had in the hospital.
Yes.
With those children that were laughing and experiencing joy in a time they probably shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that reminded you of your purpose and that you don't really have anything to complain about.
That's true. Like I said, everybody has good days and bad days. And I don't care where you live, who you are, you're going to have bad days. But I've found by looking at the situation you're in, and everybody's different, everybody handles things different. To me, I look at it, what made it such a bad day? Okay, there's the cause. What can I do to make it better? And it all comes back to attitude. I changed my attitude to where, the negative thoughts, I just drive out of my brain. I don't think about it. And the recovery time on anything, if you think that way, is twofold. It's so much faster than the other way. Then I found out the most about that when my son died. It was one of the hardest things I've ever experienced in my life. I don't think no parent should have to bury a child. But it happened. And my wife was having a hard time with it. And I sat her down one night. We had a real long, good talk, cried a lot. And finally, we both decided we'll get over this. And we did. And so there's a lot of things in life that we can't change. We can't say tomorrow something's going to happen, because it's going to. But it's just the attitude that you have. I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people about the different things that have happened to me. And I can see a big change in their lives because they've taken some of it and maybe thought, well, maybe I can do that. They've changed their attitude about worse days. Again, everybody's going to have them, and there's nothing you can do about that. but the way you handle it is the thing that you can control.
I love that perspective, and I've noticed that in my own life and with my wife's health as well. Sometimes she'll reflect and say something like, I thought I had it really bad, and then I saw someone else who's got it worse. And comparison can generally be seen as a bad thing. But when you take it to like as feedback and say, hey, I'm putting a lot of negativity my own way, or I'm experiencing a lot of self-pity, and realize I still have a lot to be thankful for. And I can control that. I can control how I respond towards gratitude or awareness or perspective. Sometimes those type of comparisons help remind you, like the children in the hospital, help remind you that you can do it. You can get through a lot of hard things if you choose to.
And if you've got the mind that you can choose to change things, you'll experience things every day that a lot of times would be devastating to you. But they're not, because you don't let things bother you as much anymore. I think when I found out that I could turn a bad day into a good day, it made all the difference in the world. It not only helped me, helped the people around me. So I'll do that probably till the day I die.
Well, I love that perspective too of you're not just doing it for you. Like a way you give back is by living in a way that helps inspire others. Mm-hmm. And people like myself, I've observed from you, like, man, this guy is he's peaceful. He's confident. He's happy.
That's true. I am.
He has joy in his life, and he's had cancer multiple times, and he's lost a son not too long ago, and many other things that we could talk about. And you still experience joy. And I think one thing too is you said you and your wife grieved together. Mm-hmm. You held each other up through a difficult time, and you got through something difficult. I don't know if we ever truly get over things, but we change and adapt with those things. Living a life with grief and post-loss. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what's the change?
Yeah, in fact, I agree with that 100%. Again, going back to the loss of my son. At the first, I thought I would never get over it. And to be honest with you, I think about him every day, which I think is a good thing.
For sure.
But I've changed the thoughts that I have, that why did it happen to him? Oh, pity me. I know where he's at. He's in a good place. He's in a happy place. He doesn't have his chronic problems that he had while he was here on the earth. And every day I think about him now, it's not the bad things that he did. It's the good things that he did. We remember him. He had a big, big heart. He was just a little guy, stature. He, every night, he lived with us the last 5 years of his life. And every night, he never failed. He would come up and tell his mom how much he loved her, tell her goodnight. And it was a horrible thing to happen. It was a worse day, but it turned out to be a better day because I know where he's at.
Yeah, that quiet confidence reassured through your faith, helping you feel that love and connection to him. I find in my own life, like, if I don't have that peace, it's really difficult for me.
I think it would be difficult for anybody. And that's hopefully why sometimes people that have gone through things, you hear them talk and you hear them stories, and hopefully it'll help somebody else come up with that same idea, that you don't have to worry about things as much as you used to, because it doesn't going to do you any good. It's going to make you sicker. It's going to make you feel worse. And it's going to make taking any situation in your life and it's going to make them hard. And you don't need to.
Yeah. And maybe we can speak to that a little bit, because this was 2008 that the bad stuff started happening, or was it 2018?
2008 is when it all started.
So prior to 2008, maybe there was a slightly different version of you that wasn't expecting cancer, wasn't ready for a bunch of these trials to happen. And then they came. Mm-hmm. and you adapted and changed along with it. We have seasons in our lives.
We do.
And sometimes at different seasons in our lives, we're not ready for the next piece yet, but inspirational people or angels show up and help us become ready for something coming up. How was your life prior? Like what prepped you, got you ready to experience those difficult trials?
Well, I've never been I don't know what word to use. I've never let anything really, really bother me until I had something that was really scary that could take my life. And that was that first cancer. And before that, sometimes I'd get a little mad at something happening, but I wouldn't do anything to change it. I would just have to live with it until I wasn't mad anymore. And in experiencing what I did with that first cancer and deciding within myself that you have the ability to change your own mind. Everybody does.
How did you learn that?
I think it's just something that maybe I was just thinking about that one day, not liking the person I was becoming.
Okay.
And thought, when bad things happen, you don't have to let them bother you very much like they do, unfortunately. And the main one, like I said earlier, was this first cancer. When I first had it and I was going around before I looked at those little kids and seen what they were going through, I told myself, this is going to be bad. I don't know if I'm going to like this. And I thought maybe I'd turn into a grumpy old guy and everything, but I didn't want to do that. And that day, and maybe I got up for a purpose and walked around that floor and saw those little kids, because it changed my life. It really did. I wasn't a bad person before that happened.
Of course.
But I could get grouchy. I could see somebody having something and say, boy, I feel sorry for them. I hope that never happens to me. I don't think that way anymore. Anything happens bad to a person, I just hope and pray. If I know them, I tell them, you can take care of this. You can get a better attitude. And a good attitude is as good as a good doctor sometimes.
Absolutely.
A good medicine.
Mm-hmm.
A good attitude is everything, no matter what you're talking about. If you don't have a good attitude, you're going to struggle in life. If you try to turn things around, the worst days, they're still going to come,
right? But
they won't have half the impact if you just turn it around and make it a good day.
Yeah, I feel like there's you could look at research that backs that up. You can look at longevity studies that back that up. But at the end of the day, you probably just feel better when you live in a state of letting things go, choosing to be grateful, choosing to share your perspectives of hope with your friends and neighbors and loved ones. Mm-hmm. And generally, that quality of life, even if your physical health is lower, is going to be higher, opposed to carrying the grouchy, grumpy guy and the bad physical health.
True.
So if you're going to have one, you might as well have the positive side of that. Not to dismiss that things can be negative and sad and hard, but you don't have to live in that space.
That's for sure. One thing I forgot to mention after my first cancer, and that was the worst one, with what they had to do to my face and everything. But I decided when I finally come home and people started coming over and seeing me and things like that, I decided that, and people think I'm strange for saying this, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. It not only changed my life, but it changed a lot of people that are really, really close to me. One in particular, my youngest brother. He always considered himself as the black sheep of the family, but he wasn't. He's a good kid, but he was a wild kid.
Yeah.
And when I had my first cancer and gone through all that, when I went down to his house to tell him that I had the cancer, and this is a kid that nothing ever used to bother him. He just broke down, threw his arms around me, and we stood there and bawled for 20 minutes. And when I got through with the cancer and was better, I sat him down one day. I says, we need to talk. And I told him, I says, I love you more than you'll ever know, but you got a really bad attitude about life. And I
you got
flat
some
told
clout
him,
to back it up, right?
yeah. And I told him, and he looked at me like, well, how do you know? And I says, because I've been through something you've never been through. I thought I was going to die. And it turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life. It changed his life. He's turned around since then. He was already married, but him and his wife went and worked real hard, waited a year, and were married in the temple. And he's very active today. And he just totally changed his life based on what happened to me. And so on that, I say I would do it again if I knew it was going to help somebody. And it's just a neat thing to have that feeling to know that maybe, yeah, you've gone through some pain, but it helps somebody else. So it makes it easier.
Yeah, that's a gifted perspective that you've earned through blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
That some of us really struggle to get there, and that maybe the season of our life is we're not ready to get there yet. And your brother maybe wasn't ready to get there yet, and was still kind of in his season of complaining or self-pity or whatever you want to call it, taking whatever he needed. But you are now in a season that could share heart to heart real truth.
Yeah.
And he was in a position to receive that because he witnessed how you went through it too.
This happened at a time before he had any of their children. And since then, when he's got a family of 3 boys, bunch of grandkids now. But anyway, it had a big effect on the way he brought his sons up. Because I think he would have brought them up the same way he was if it hadn't happened. And so he's taught them to kind of have the same perspective. When things happen, which they will, don't look at the bad side, look at the flip side of it. And there's always a good side of everything.
Well, and to come to the space where you can literally say cancer was the best thing that's ever happened to you and feel that takes a lot, right? It takes a lot.
It helped me too in deciding that, because when I was going back the first year, I had to go back to the doctor, probably once every 2 weeks for a while. And then it went to 6 weeks, and then it finally. But every time I would go, I would tell the nurses the same thing. I would smile at them and say, don't let anything bother you. I said, this is the best thing that ever happened to me, because I meet nice people. I've changed my attitude about life. I think that I've changed some opinions of some people with what happened to me. And why wouldn't you want to share that and say it was a good time? Because it really was.
Do you feel like before you had these things happen to you, you could have shared feedback with your brother like you were able to after? Or would you have been more like, yeah, life kind of sucks with us, like this?
I probably would have had a talk with him that would go something like, I'd be agreeing with him.
Okay.
I probably would have. All the time I was growing up until that happened to me, I was basically the same way he was.
Okay.
I was happy when things were good for me.
And maybe not when they weren't good.
And not so good when they weren't. But I've learned because of these things that have happened to me that life's too short to let stumbling blocks get in your way. Just move them aside, keep going.
See, that's I think the gift that is comes for some people easier than others.
Mm-hmm.
But when you choose to start recognizing, all right, this is not how I want to live. I don't want to keep carrying these stumbling blocks with me. I want to do something different. So you start asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're watching this and you're listening to this, maybe you've asked that question too, but at some point you have to move beyond good things happen to me, bad things happen to me, and that determines my mood. Instead, I get to choose how I'm going to feel and live my life in accordance with good or bad. I can still choose to live with joy.
That's true. Let me share one other thing that I was going to mention. when this first happened, that first cancer, and my wife would go to the doctors with me and different people, and I'd started telling people that it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And on the way home this one time, the wife looked at me, she says, "How can you say that was the best thing that happened to you?" She says, "It was horrible." And I says, "Well, yes, it was horrible, but there's a perspective. It was horrible for just a little minute compared to life. And compared to life, I had so much more time to change my attitude about everything, not just getting sick, but about everything and sharing that with people. And it's made me happier. I feel like I'm still able to do the things I want to do. I don't have a desire to go sit in a chair and watch television till I die. I just want to keep active. And all of that, and it's probably mounted with each thing that's happened to me and got even stronger, but it started with that first cancer.
That's a beautiful perspective. I recently read a book from Stephen Covey. His daughter finished it. I think it's called Life in the Crescendo, or I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. It's like Life in the Crescendo. And she talks about finishing her father's work. That's part of it. When she talks about later in life, you have two choices. You can slow things down and go to the couch if you want and watch a lot of TV till you die and carry whatever attitude you have into that space. Or you can live with more meaning and more purpose and actually push the gas pedal down, and life will accelerate, but you'll be in a good space. You'll be enjoying your life.
Yeah.
And I see you as someone who hasn't slowed down since cancer. You probably have accelerated.
Yeah, I think I have. And I know for a fact that not dwelling on the negative has not only helped me, but I know I've helped other people. I've seen some things happen with people, some of my good close friends, part of my family, in fact, but some really good friends that we've had really good talks about what happened to me. And they wanted to know how I was able to get through it. Because they can see a difference in somebody that just gives up and somebody that doesn't let it bother them. And I think if I can portray that to people and they can see that in the way I live and it helps them, why not have cancer?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to help people.
Yeah. You're willing to give that to them.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe this is my own personal belief around these concepts we're talking about, but when we go through these difficult trials and struggles, in the middle of them, it can be really difficult to have a good attitude or switch to a positive perspective. But when you've learned through one, you can learn through another. Like we've done this before. This is the hill we're on. We're not going to die on this hill. So for me, like in my life, I've lived with a spouse with chronic illness. And there's been a lot of times where I'm like, is this ever going to end?
Yeah. You do.
Where is the treasure at the end of the rainbow? Like, is there this thing? And I'm generally pretty good at letting things roll off. And I'm generally pretty good at not holding on to it. And maybe it's a developed skill over lots of years of struggling with these chronic issues. But occasionally I'm just overwhelmed by it. What would you speak to me or someone who's listening when they hit those overwhelming moments? What helps you through those?
Well, again, and this goes along with what we said or talked about earlier, is everybody is going to have their overwhelming experiences and moments. And I still have them. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But under the circumstances, with what I've already gone through, when something else knocks on the door and puts a cloud in front of you, it's just so much easier now. In fact, my son, before he died, when I was going through my first cancer, he came into the hospital. He hates hospitals because he spent half his youth in a hospital, had back problems and everything. But he came up to me, and I was kind of feeling a little bad. And he said, "Dad," he says, "just remember," and I've always remembered this, he says, "the sun is always on the other side of the clouds." And I thought, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then I got thinking about it. It really is. The sun's there. It's never going to be taken away. And if you can just get through and part the clouds and let the sun shine through, it's not only going to help you, but you're going to try to help other people.
It feels like you learned from him.
I did.
From those
I
experiences.
did. Both my wife and I did. It was a horrible experience. In fact, it was a lot harder than any of these cancers or anything else I went through, losing my boy. But in a way, and I hope people don't take this wrong, but in a way it was a blessing.
Of course.
Not only for him, but for us, because we grew and we learned more because of that experience.
Well, I think experiences are only wasted if you don't learn from them.
That's true.
I had a unique experience yesterday even. I was walking into a store and an acquaintance from a long time ago recognized me. And she ran up to me and she's like, I didn't want to be the one that said hello. I don't know if you'd recognize me. It's, probably 10, 11 years ago, I haven't seen this person. And when I last interacted with this person, she was going through a lot of grief, and her mom had recently passed away, and myself and a couple others were part of her inner circle of grief support. Not really realizing how impactful that would be at the time. You're just in it. You're in it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we shared a cry together in the store. Like, her life is go forward 10 years. She's coming up on the 10 year of her mom's passing, and there was peace, love, and hope in her. And her experience and her mother's experience helped shape my career.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that happened around her mom's passing could have been prevented had spaces in my career been more developed. And they inspired me to go out and learn how to help more people.
Yeah. Sometimes we need something to inspire us. And it works different on different people. I liked what you said about you both stood there and cried. That's another thing I've learned. It's okay to cry. I've told that to a lot of friends, and they look at me like, I ain't not going to cry. And I says, well, if you finally decide you're going to cry about something, you're going to feel 10 times better. And so I've got to the point where I'll get a tear in my eye on something that happens on television now.
Yeah.
Or if something happens to a close friend, it's okay to cry.
And that lesson is one that you could go back 30, 40 years ago and people would say it's not okay.
Yeah.
But as you've connected with your soul and softened your heart, myself included, I used to struggle with crying a lot. Like, I'd lock that up. But through life experience and becoming more in tune with my heart and feeling my emotions, it's really important to feel.
It really is important. And it makes a difference.
Makes you human.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like the people around you, they see that and you're like, oh, Dad can cry now? Or my brother can cry? He used to be hard. And he's real.
Well, I think times have changed. When I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and I never seen my father cry. Never. In fact, the day before he died, he was in the hospital, and each of us boys, there's 4 of us, we'd take a night and stay overnight with him. And the night I stayed with him, it was the weirdest night I've ever experienced in my life. He talked about things I had no idea what he was talking about. He was talking to people up in the corner, and I finally figured that I think that was some of his old Navy buddies.
Okay.
I really do. And then he would just kind of go to sleep, and then he'd wake up and talk to me, and he'd say, what are you doing here for? And I'd tell him, and we'd laugh, and we cried about a couple of things. And I'd never seen him cry. And when he died in fact, I got in the morning when my other brother came to take my place. I was on my way home, and my brother stayed, called me and says, he just died. I missed it. I wished I could have been there, but I said to my brothers, because we'd had this conversation about Dad never crying, And I says, I'll bet you where he went when he died. He did some crying, from happy crying, and that and the things that have happened to me. It's just, that's why I maintain, if you need to cry, just cry. Don't let anybody shame you, because crying's okay.
Well, I feel like as you've talked through this today, we're sharing kind of like a shedding of an old self.
Yeah.
You let go of little things bothering you. You let go of life controlling how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You let go of things when you've had a near-death experience or difficult trials, and you're like, that stuff doesn't matter. Wearing those masks of "I gotta not cry" is just another one of those masks you don't have to wear anymore, because you've matured. You're into another season of your life. I felt that in my own life, at least.
I agree. And you know, in talking about the things that I'm talking about, and like you say, I put a starting date of 2008. I wished, maybe without going through the things I did, that I could have done that 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much peace and happiness that you can bring to somebody that's in trouble, that's having problems. And I never used to worry about that. And now it's a focus. I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night thinking of some neighbors and what maybe I could do to cheer them up. And it's made me a better person. I can feel it that it has. But yeah.
Well, you talked about earlier, like the healing math. When you have the right attitude and you're in that space, things just go like twice as fast.
That's true.
Well, there's a piece of that too. When you're living in a way that you're giving to others, you're seeking out ways to help others. You're no longer focused on yourself. And the focus on others in a good way, it brings back twofold or morefold of peace, joy, happiness, you name it, back into your life.
I think that's what life's all about, is thinking about others.
So we need to get there sooner.
Yeah.
If you could have gone back 30
like
years
I said,
prior,
if I'd have done this 30 years ago, I'd have been helping more people sooner.
Yeah. And I venture you've done it in different capacities. I remember when I was a 19-year-old man going on a mission to a foreign country, and I didn't know what I was doing. It started out very much, woe is me. This is crazy hard. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And by the end, I was like loving it. And all I was doing was serving people every day, all day. Like that's what I did. I'd wake up and I'd serve. I'd go to bed and I'd serve. And I felt so good. And I remember my mission president and his wife sharing once in a conference. They're like, look, these last 2 years you gave will make up for the previous 20 years of selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
And about 20 years from now, you're going to have to do it again.
Comes and goes.
Comes and goes.
But yeah, I agree with you 100%. The way we act depends on, to me anyway, how many people I can help. Whether it's through deed or help, physical help, or just talking them and showing that there's a better way of just always feeling sorry for yourself. Because it doesn't going to get you anywhere.
No, I don't think it will.
No.
And those little shifts in mind and moving towards a selfless way of seeking to give others, I feel like it's a development. You develop that through your experience in life. Maybe 30 years prior, you would have heard some of that. Yeah, that seemed like a good idea. But to actually do it without living through it would be a really difficult thing to do.
Well, I'm sure I was probably taught that.
Yeah.
All my life. I had good parents, and they probably taught me, hey, you shouldn't worry about things like that. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. But until it actually happens to you, and then they have the opportunity to say something that's going to help somebody else, to me, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was listening to a book that talked about this really famous Catholic priest, and I think his name's Martin. I'll have to look it up, but he was at a seminary giving a speech, and he had all these young people coming in to become priests and pastors or whatever they're going to be. And he gave them the speech, and he looked around, and he saw that a lot of them were like 20-year-olds. And he said, what are you doing here? You haven't lived yet.
Yeah.
How can you go be a spiritual priest the rest of your life and you haven't had any life experience? He said, go have life first. And then if you want to come back, come back.
You do a much better job.
Do a much better job.
Yeah.
So my worry with people today is that they're not living enough. No, they're not getting out of their distractions long enough to see their neighbor might need help, or to see a friend could use an uplift, or notice someone's having a rough day, long enough to get out of their distractions to actually become aware of the world around them. And when you live that way, your world gets smaller, in my opinion.
I think it's very important to find out whenever it comes that you're not the only one here. There's people around you that need you. You might not know it. There's people that, in fact, my wife and I served a service mission down in Salt Lake at the Temple Square for about 5 years. And I ran into people that I hadn't seen for years and years. And they'd heard things about what I was doing, what I'd been doing, what had happened to me. And they came up to me and they say, you've changed my life. And have you ever had anybody say that to you, that you've changed their life? There's nothing better that can be told to you. I mean, I don't know if I'm doing right, if I'm doing wrong, but if I can change somebody's life for the better, I think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's a goal.
Yeah.
You know, I look at that as, do we live with purpose? Do we find ways to give back more than we take? There's a lot of life lessons that we can pick up through experience. Mm-hmm. Some of those we can pick up from learning from others. I have gratefully been a big reader, and I've picked up a lot of mentors in books and through story. And some of those mentors have definitely shaped my life.
Oh, yeah.
The more powerful ones are the one-on-ones, the intercession with another human being. But I think of one mentor that you remind me of in a degree is a man named Randy Pausch. He passed away of cancer. He didn't win that fight, but he went out with a great attitude. And he wrote a book called The Last Lecture, where everything he wanted to say to his family and loved ones, he wanted to say before he passed. And one of those pieces in there that helped him through all of his struggles was he chose to be a non-complainer. and he would share his stories of mentors.
Yeah.
And it was a piece that he had to learn through life and carry with us. So as we've been talking about these different things, I'd love to go into some of your core pieces that have helped you become a non-complainer, become someone who chooses to lean into positivity. Because there's people who are like, how do I do that? How do I do what Brent is doing without having cancer? And they're probably open to learning.
That's kind of a hard one, but I would say let the people that are around you, the ones that are closest to you, let them teach you something, because everybody has something to teach. You might hear something that you don't like because it doesn't affect me like that, but it does. And anytime you can get any kind of uplift from somebody else, absorb that and let it come out in the way you act. And I try to do it all the time. I didn't used to do it all the time, but I'm trying to now, because there's so many people that you don't even know that you're helping. And you may never know. But the ones you do find out about it, boy, it makes you happy. You're right.
Yeah, you don't know what ripple effect you might be having, for good or for bad. So if you're going to leave an influence, you may as well try to leave a good one.
True.
And seek to make the world
There's too many
better.
bad influences in the world. So anytime you can get a hold of a good one, you got to do it.
Got to do it.
Got to do it.
I would love to hear, we talked before the show started, we talked a little bit about your history in the Army and some of the pieces that shaped your early life. Do you mind sharing some of those pieces? You brought up that when you was it drafted into the Army?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about that. I think that's important context to what helped build your character throughout your life.
Okay, I was 23 years old when I got drafted. I was married, already had a little girl, and going to school. And they made this big final push before that number system came out. And they drafted me, and I was shocked. I thought, why now? But I was willing to go and do whatever I had to do because I love America. And it was a shock, though, but I'm glad it happened. I'm glad I got drafted, not for the fact that I got to go play softball and I didn't have to go to war, but even if I would have had to gone over there, since that's happened, and I've talked to a whole bunch of friends that were over there, I would have done my best. I would have given it my all. I'm a true believer in whatever you're called to do, you got to do it.
Well, remind the listeners what you were drafted to do. What was your first assignment supposed to be?
They trained me to be a tunnel rat, which is one of these people they're smaller in stature, and over in Vietnam, they had a lot of tunnels dug, and they would hide in there, lots of them, the enemy. And the tunnel rats would only have a flashlight and a revolver. Actually, not a revolver, but a handgun. But you'd have to go down in, and if you found anybody, you obviously tried to get back to warn everybody. The plan was, and this is what made it so scary, and this is what they told us anyway, sometimes you're down in there and you have to shoot the gun, your pistol at somebody or something to protect yourself.
That'd be awful.
As soon as the people on the outside that are waiting for a report hear gunfire, they usually blow the tunnel.
Oh, wow. So it's
and hopefully you can get out the other end if you made it. But the life expectancy of one of those guys wasn't very high. And I was worried sick that I was going to have to do that.
But you were willing to do it anyway.
I would have done it because I feel like I'm a patriotic American. I believe in our country. If I was called to go do that, I would go do it. I wouldn't go to Canada.
Yeah, like some of our politicians did.
Yeah. There's a lot of, back when I was drafted, there was a lot of young kids that didn't want to get drafted, so they left the country. I'm not that way. I was born in America. I'm an American, and I'm proud to be an American, and I'll do anything the country asks me to do. But it was a different time in my life because I went through some thoughts and things about what I was going to have to do that just scared me to death. I told my wife what they were training me to do, and she was beside herself.
Yeah, might have been a better one kept to the chest, not sharing that one with her.
But I don't know.
But the events changed. They trained you that way, but then they found out you had a skill.
And it's so weird. I've pitched softball since I started learning how to do that when I was 10 years old. I got to be pretty good. In fact, after I got out of the Army, after playing for the Army team, I traveled all over the country playing softball, been to four world tournaments.
Wow.
And we had a really good team. And in fact, my oldest daughter, when she was small, when we were playing down in the South, playing for the Army, we was at the ballpark one day, and a lady came up to her. She was just a little girl. She had big pigtails down and freckles all over her face. And the lady says, "Where did you get all those freckles?" And she said, "I got them at the ballpark." We spent a lot of time at the ballpark. And when I come home, like I said, I played till I was about 39, 40 years old. Every year, we traveled all over the country.
What a fun thing to do.
Oh, I loved it.
And while you're in the Army, tell us why it was important in the Army. Like, how do they use softball to make the troops happy or support the Army?
I hesitate telling anybody that's been in the Army that that's what I did, because it doesn't bother me anymore. But the Army, they have things like that. I mean, you see even in Washington, you have military doing these honor guards, flag bearers, things like that. There's all sorts of things. You don't have to go to war to say you're in the Army.
Yeah.
They just have different things. It helps morale, not only of the people that get to play. They had a big field where we played at down at Fort Benning, and all the different bases that we went to had big fields, and they were always full because the people in the Army, it's something to get away from what they were doing normally.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they have that. They have bands, they have orchestras, they have singing groups, they have honor guards, they have softball players.
Yeah.
But I think if I can share something spiritual with you.
Please do.
I had my patriarchal blessing.
For context, share what that is, because not everyone's going to know what that is.
Okay. But anyway, you usually, growing up in the church, you get your patriarchal blessing when you're a teenager sometime. I never got mine. In fact, I didn't get it. I'd gone on my mission and come home and still hadn't had it. And when I got drafted into the Army, knowing where I thought I was going to be going, I decided I better get my patriarchal blessing.
So this kind of blessing, for those who don't know, is a special, unique blessing in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where you have an anointed patriarch give you a blessing that's as if God was telling you some things in your life that will help you.
It's about basically a blueprint of what your life is from then on.
Yeah, some things that could happen if you live a certain way.
That's true. And the only reason I brought that up is there was one little short statement in that. You don't share a lot of these things with anybody.
Absolutely.
But there was one thing in it that I didn't understand.
And you got this as an adult, right?
Yeah. Got that when I was 23.
Okay.
It said in my patriarchal blessing that because of my physical attributes, I'd be kept from harm. I didn't know what that meant.
What does a 23-year-old know about that?
Yeah. And so I went in the Army, and I ended up not going to Vietnam, ended up playing softball, which was my love. And then I look back at my patriarchal blessing, and I know exactly why. And that was told to me and why they said that, the way they said it. Because of my physical attributes, which at the time I was a really good softball pitcher, that I'd be kept from harm, and I didn't have to go over there.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it meant a lot to me.
Well, I feel like we're coming to a resolved piece. Let's share. If you had a couple of things that maybe you didn't get to share today that you would like people to know about life experience that would maybe inspire them to choose into purpose so they don't have to suffer through things as rough as some of us do, what would that be?
Well, I guess the main thing in my life is just to love everybody. Love is a doorway to open up so many more things in your life. If you go around hating people, looking for the worst in people, not caring what people do, that's the way you're going to turn out. But I let love come through first, and I can see something good in almost every person I meet, even though they're yelling. There's something good about everybody. And I would just say, be your own person. Don't let anybody tell you how to act, but be your own person. But find the person in you that's the right person. The things that are going to come out that are going to help other people. Because that's what it's all about.
I love that you said, let the love come through.
Yeah.
I mean, the word let is powerful. It's turning over your heart. It's saying, I don't have this under control completely, but I can let love drive me. And then I love how you talked about how being your own person.
Yeah, you have to be. And when you do have the opportunity to feel somebody's love, don't let it bounce off. Take everybody's love into you, because that's going to make you a better person to somebody else. I mean, there's so much evil and so much bad things that are going on in the world that if you get the opportunity to grasp even just a little bit of love, do it, because it's going to do nothing but help you.
Let it in.
Let it in.
A lot of us will hold walls or put restraints on love. Maybe we're afraid to get hurt. Maybe we're afraid we're not going to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
My late mother, she loved her children. She loved her family. She loved people. And she was sometimes misunderstood because she had some walls. But one thing she said that stuck with me as a child is she would say, you can never love a child too much.
True.
And that doesn't have to be your own child. That can be any child. Anybody. And I've seen some people put restraints around that, like, well, no, you have to kind of guard things, but you really don't. Like, there's plenty of love to give. If you're willing to receive and give, there's plenty for everybody. Doesn't have to be a limit. But some of us who didn't learn love naturally or didn't have parents or affectionate grandparents, we might not know how to give that.
That's true. And one thing you have to be careful of in trying to give love to as many people as you can, there's going to be some times that you're rejected.
Yeah.
And that's okay. If you just don't let it affect you and you go to another person and try to do the same thing.
Well, that's the other piece too of being yourself.
Yeah.
Too many of us put restraint around who we are based on what we receive back.
Mm-hmm.
If you give love with no expectation of return, it can't hurt you.
No.
If you're expecting return, it's going to probably hurt you at some point, or it may not even be genuine love.
Yeah, it's not genuine love if you are expecting a return. It can't be. Love is just something that radiates and it helps, but not in a way that it's going to make you a more boastful person. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, for me, it really came to my point was I was reading in the Bible, and it's a common scripture. I think it's John 3:16, or I'm probably messing it up, but I'll put it in the thing. It says, God loves us. We love because God loved us first. So for those of us who weren't raised with parents or grandparents that were really good at sharing love, and we may not know how to love very well,
Mm-hmm.
we can take that to our higher power. We can ask, if I call mine Heavenly Father, you might call yours something else. We can take it to our higher power. Hey, teach me how to love. Like, teach me how to feel it. And it's available for all of us if we seek it.
If you'll let it in.
If you'll let it in.
That's true.
And I get a lot of that from working with addiction recovery, because we talk a lot about higher power. And one of the most common sayings they say is let go, let God. Is, let's in there twice.
Mm-hmm.
But let love in is really powerful. I think we'll wrap it there. Do you have any last feelings or comments you'd like to share?
No, it's been a good experience. I don't mind talking about some of the things that happened to me, because I've found out in doing that, it has helped some people. And so why not? So yeah, it's a great experience.
Well, thank you, Brent. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you a little bit more. I value your heart and your experience, and I hope to learn from you even more as I have taken in today, and hopefully some of this rubs off on me as well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.